All right guys, we're just gonna be setting up this Workhorse 1 right now. We're just kind of trying to adjust our blades, adjust our pressures for PPF. Right now we're just trying to dial it in. We're about to start a PPF training class, so we're just dialing in our blade right now, making sure that all of our PPF doesn't walk, everything is centered, and then we can also adjust our blades. After you get your plotter dialed in and you set your adjustments, we already opened Film Cut, which is a program we use to cut our patterns today for the PPF class. We are gonna cut out and just kind of use as much of the film as we can to go ahead and save some film. So on this one, we're gonna be cutting the fender, we're gonna be cutting the door cups, we'll cut both mirrors, and just try and utilize as much space as you can. So now he's walking his pattern to the vehicle. He's gonna start his initial lineup, just kind of get it on there roughly. And then after he sets up where he's gonna establish to start squeegeeing out his pattern, he'll set his tack point, his anchor, and then just start working from there. Don't be afraid to use your towel. Your towel's gonna be, your best friend as well, as far as, once you're squeegeeing out, kind of, wipe out whatever you want. All right guys, now that we've done this one fender, we already had to cut out the passenger fender. They're in the same weeding process. Right now they're weeding out their pattern. They're removing the cap sheet. They'll weed out the big piece of PPF, has their pattern cut in it. They'll weed out the excess and then have a more manageable pattern. They already prepped and cleaned the driver's side fender, and that's what we'll do next. So right now that they laid their pattern, everything is done. They've let it sit. Z let all of his edges dry out. So now he's gonna do the final tuck, and that way you have full coverage on the fender, and everything is protected. Your fingers, you might have to readjust it a time or two. You can grab it back a little bit further. So right there, we're almost, 90% coverage of where we need to be. And we're just kind of holding it on its own. And then of course, you start squeegeeing out your water. Now you might find that because since we stretched, remember yesterday I said we already kind of closed the way out, you can always pick it up a little bit, and that's just gonna help you, leave it a way out. It'd be your tack point. It's just so much easier, and you can actually get a lot more coverage. Let it create a little bit of memory. And then you can, start finishing it out as well. All right guys, now we're gonna move on to the bumper. It's gonna be the biggest section of the vehicle we'll do besides the full hood. What they did now is they're gonna go ahead and start their trimming process and kind of cut down any excess to be able to have their pattern more manageable, and then they'll start out the weeding process, and then we'll jump to the installation. This is a tricky bumper, man, for sure. And that's where I said sometimes, like I said, you're gonna have to learn how to squeegee with both hands, because you're gonna have to sometimes stretch it and then squeegee it with, so train your left hand. I know you're right hand dominant, so am I, but I've trained my left hand to pull, to stretch, to squeegee, to cut, and sometimes that's just gonna help as well.
Tack these little sharp edges?
Not until you can, just so they don't fall, but don't tack too much because we'll probably have to lift it up. Don't worry about, lining up this edge, because this edge, if we have to, we can always trim. It's an open edge. Let me see this real quick. You want to get as many of those fingers out as you can.
Final piece of this installation, we're gonna do the full hood. We've already done the bumper, fenders. Everything's pretty much complete. We have a few little spots on the bumper that we come back to, letting it dry out so we can tuck all of our edges. But now we're gonna tackle the biggest part of the car and the last piece of the puzzle, which will be the hood, and we'll be doing it in a full bulk piece. Yeah, maybe don't put so much pressure on your first pass. On the first pass, just get 70% of the water out, and then on your second pass, get the rest of it. That way, at least it has a little bit of tack and it doesn't move on you. Instead of trying to get this line out little by little, because it's gonna wanna go left or right, in this case, I would kind of try and work it a little bit evenly versus trying to go just single strokes, because it's going to want to go to the left or the right.
Don't just do a rough cut. Don't try and get too close to the final cut. We're just taking off any really excess that we can. Remember,
Right there?
Yeah, just lift it off with a car, and that way you don't, ever, cut a window, cut a light or cut the panel or anything. All that happened is, of course, we had fingers all the way along the body line. So when you squeegeed it, we were finishing it off. And of course, as we're doing it, we're just pushing all the tension to this corner. So to eliminate that and to make it easier and spread all of those fingers between the whole panel, you would start here and then just kind of work it all down evenly, like if you were doing like a pull shrink on a big window.